Hey everybody, I'm Angenette Levy. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining me on a Sunday. I don't usually hop on here on Sundays. Every once in a while I do. I had to go to a Dia de los Muertos party last night. So my neighbor had this party and I didn't hop on my usual Saturday night. So I was like, well, I can't not go live this weekend. So I got to go live on Sunday. So here I am. Happy daylight savings time ending. So I hope everybody had a great extra hour of sleep last night. I know I did. I almost put on one of the face tattoos I was wearing last night just so you guys could see what I had on my face, along with my Dia de los Muertos poncho. But I thought, you know what? I'll spare you that. Maybe I'll just share some pictures of it another time. But thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday. If you haven't already, please hit that thumbs up button. It really helps the video in the algorithm. Also, I would love it if you would subscribe if you haven't already. That would be great. We just broke our big goal of 38,000 subscribers. Thanks to all of you. So now we have this big new goal. I'd love to reach 39,000 subscribers here soon or eventually. Sometimes it takes some time and sometimes things take off and you gain a lot of subscribers all at once. So it just depends. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed and supported my channel here so far. It's really been fun doing this, and I hope you'll continue to follow me and we will hang out and talk about all kinds of things. We continue to get a drip, drip, drip of information in the Idaho 4 case. In case you didn't realize it, if you've been following the case, the 3-year anniversary of these homicides is coming up in just a matter of days, in 12 days. It's hard to believe it's been that long. In some ways, it feels like it's been that long already. In other ways, it feels like it hasn't. So it will be 3 years on November 13th that Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were murdered. And we continue to get more evidence released through Idaho State Police, mostly through Idaho State Police, but some from Moscow Police, of what went on in this case, the processing of evidence. And so, of course, on Halloween, Idaho State Police decides to do a big evidence dump, like 2,400 pages, 2,400 page PDF. Let me share my screen and show you some of it. So they decided to do this evidence dump that included the Sheath. So I'm going to show you the Sheath, but they dropped this PDF on their website. So I've been reading through some of this 2,400 pages of material, and it also includes photos of the Sheath. And everybody's been kind of wondering for all this time, I've shown this to you before, of course, like this is what the Sheath looked like. And people have been saying for the longest time, I know people would come into my chat and say things like, it didn't have the USMC thing on it. It didn't have it. It didn't have this. It didn't have that. Well, guess what? It does. It's just like this Sheath, except it looks a little lighter than the one I have, my prop Sheath here. So I can put those photos up on the screen for you. So let's put some of the photos, and I just scrolled through the PDF again and found even more photos than I had found the first time. So here is one of the photos of the Sheath. And every time I look at other photos, it's like it looks a little bit different. It must be the lighting conditions. It looks a little dark to me here in spots. If you look at it closely, like at first I was like, wait, what is that? Is it worn? Is that blood, heaven forbid? Because we knew that there was the DNA of Kaylee and Maddie found on the Sheath. But then when you look at it in different light, it looks a little different. And I wondered, I looked at the date here, 12/5/2022. They photographed this. Maybe it was from the swabbing of the Sheath. I don't know. Because every time I go through the PDF, I start finding other photos of the Sheath that I hadn't seen before. So this is a photo of the Sheath that was taken on December 5th. of 2022, which is really funny to me because on that day I was on a plane going to Idaho. I flew to Spokane and then hired a guy to take me down to Moscow. So they were photographing this sheath, I guess, while I was flying to Spokane down in the lab in Meridian, Idaho. That's in the Boise area. They have a really old ruler at the crime lab, apparently. This is an old school ruler. This reminds me of something that they had when I was in elementary school. So they must not have room in the budget for new rulers at the crime lab. But they're talking about the handle portion, the blade portion. And this is item 1. This is the most important piece of DNA evidence that they've got in this case at this point in time on December 5th, 2022. And I really think, that basically they already had probably, if we go back and look at the documents, they probably already had the single source male DNA profile. Because I remember when I interviewed Bill Thompson, he said that sheath was packaged up and driven, hand delivered and driven down to the crime lab in Meridian. So they probably already had the DNA profile, the single source, off the snap of the sheath. So they already had that. So this is on December 5th. Here's another picture of the sheath. This is from the back, and then I'll show you the other pictures. Well, actually, let's look at this one. This is also from December 5th, and they've got their handy little ruler there, and this dashed green line that they've got there, it says area swabbed, item 1.5. So they swabbed that portion here with the USMC emblem and the K-bar. So they swabbed that area. Note, only inside surface swabbed. So they were documenting that at that time. So it's like, were they doing further processing at that point in time? Quite possibly. So here's the back of the sheath. And the back of the sheath is where they found, and they've got a better ruler here, like a more modern looking ruler on this photo. This is where the DNA of Maddie and Kaylee was found. The mixture of their DNA was found on the back of the sheath. And when I saw that in the court documents, when I read about that, I was expecting this sheath, just given what we had heard about the crime scene, to have a lot more DNA on it, a lot more blood on it. And I'm not really seeing much. I mean, maybe that was swabbed over here toward the base of the handle. I don't know. Like maybe that's where they found that. But I'm not really seeing, and maybe my eyes are just playing tricks on me, but I'm assuming maybe that's a little bit of that. Like it looks slightly discolored. Maybe that's what that is, but I'm just not seeing what I thought possibly we would see. Not as much staining as I thought. So let's pull up the document because there are even more photos of the sheath on here. So I'm going to share my screen, get to this other picture, and we'll talk about some of the testing they did on it. So this is when they first documented the sheath and first started looking at it. So that was November 17th. I was going to scroll up and just look at, these are biology analysis notes. This is from November 17th. There was evidence tape on here, yes, brown paper bag. Item opened by and examined while in the custody of forensic scientist Tina Walthall. Tan leather K-bar knife sheath, USMC, with logo and snap button strap on the front, designated as side A in photos. Belt loop and sleeve has rivets. Used bright light to examine. So they're putting this under bright light to see if they see any fluids worth processing for DNA or swabbing, that type of thing. OBS white residue on and near threads, dark areas of discoloration in material, and very small red-brown stains. They're saying very small, red-brown stains on back. Note designated as side B in photos. Tested 4 total stains on back, all equal O-TOL positive. Collected trace material onto adhesive of sticky notes, 3 on back and 3 on front strap, pack in small manila envelope, and left in custody of forensic scientist T. Wathall. Used 1 swab to swab front strap, item 1.1, versus light gray transfer to swab, consumptive. Used 1 swab to swab edges on handle portion. That's item 1.2. Used 1 swab to swab edges on blade portion. That's item 1.3. Used 2 swabs to swab O-TOL POS staining on back. I guess something positive staining. Maybe that's blood positive, I guess. Item 1.4, light red-brown transfer concentration on tips. And then the item was left again in the custody of Wathall pending latent print analysis. So they tried to find prints on it too. We know they tried to find prints on the snap, but they didn't want to mess with this too much because they knew there could possibly be DNA on it. So they never really lifted it. They never tried to lift prints off of the snap of the sheath. They had said that in some court proceedings and in some court documents. So they took some swabs off the sheath on November 17th. So here is side A. This is area swabbed, and they use the red or the purple outline to show that. So they swabbed up here on the strap, the snap, of course, as we know. They swabbed this whole thing. So it does look much lighter. The sheath does look much lighter than in the December photos. So maybe that is why it looked a little darker, because they had, when they swab it, I think they have to put some sterile water on there to kind of swab it. So maybe that's why it looked a little discolored. And then they have areas swabbed in blue as well. So they swabbed all around this belt loop, all around the snap of the sheath, all around this snap and the strap on the handle portion. And then they go down. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you can see more. And then they've got item 1.3, the area swabbed. So they swabbed the whole blade portion of the sheath as well. So it says edge only, actually, because then they went back in December and swabbed the front portion. So they did additional swabbing and testing. So they swabbed this whole thing on November 17th. So the homicides happened on November 13th. That's early Sunday morning. The sheath, they start swabbing it. I'm surprised they didn't do it more quickly, but they start swabbing it on the 17th, which would have been Thursday, I guess. Am I doing my math right? Monday would have been the 14th, Tuesday the 15th, Wednesday the 16th. Yeah, Thursday the 17th. So then they moved to the back. Here's the back of the sheath. So we have the back of the sheath, and they did item 1.4. So item 1.4 is the back of the sheath, and it's this upper portion here. And these are these O-TOL positive. That must be like the little blood places that they, okay. So these are like, I can see it better now. These are these little tiny dots. It's like there's like little tiny marks, tiny dots of blood. Wow. So that's very interesting, because I believe the sheath was found face up next to Maddie. So somehow that sounds almost like, maybe it was spatter that got on the back? I don't know. So there's little tiny dots of blood on the back of the sheath. and then they swabbed around here, and then there's a little bit of blood up top too. So maybe at some point there's a stabbing motion going on and the sheath is being held, and then at one point the sheath is put down. I don't know. But that's pretty interesting. I'm going to see what some of your comments say right now. This is the actual sheath. This is not a replica or an exemplar. This is the actual sheath. They wouldn't swab an exemplar or a replica for DNA. This was processed by the crime lab. So here's a closer look at side B, and they documented this. And here you can I think you can see a little bit these small areas with the little, I mean, these are little teeny tiny areas of blood. So I literally thought there would be more blood on here given what we heard about. Then they said they collected trace material from this area of the sheath, which sounds pretty interesting to me. They found something on here where they're like, oh, that might be relevant. So they took some lifts of that from where you see those little green boxes. And now here's the top again. They took more trace material. You can see the green boxes. And this was also on November 17th. So this is 4 days after the homicides. So there it is. Other trace material, just kind of like a white kind of piece of fuzz, it looks like. And then there's the other trace material that I told you about that they took and examined and collected. Now here's some bright light shining on the handle of the sheath. And of course, they always put the ruler there for a frame of reference. So, they know how big something is, just to show how they're documenting everything. So this is like the lab report and the checklist for the forensic examiner. It's pretty standard stuff. Nothing really super interesting there. Item 1 was processed for latent prints. Item 1, no latent prints were observed or developed, so no fingerprints. And I don't think that's highly unusual. So this is more documentation from the forensic scientists. And the forensic scientist Stephanie Wilt says, presumptive blood testing and samples for biology were collected by forensic scientist Stephanie Wilt. Trace samples were collected on Post-it notes and placed in a manila envelope. We kind of already used, or kind of read through that already. This is how it was received at the crime lab. So it's dated 11/16/2022. I'd be interested to know how it was packaged on the 13th after it was collected. Unless they left it, I can't imagine they left it sitting at the crime scene and didn't collect it that day, but what do I know? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they photographed it several times before packaging it up and taking it to the crime lab in Meridian. Here's another shot of the sheath. And you can just see how long it is. It's like about 15 inches long, 15 inches long. And I only have the sheath. I don't have the full knife. And there's the back side. Those little blood spots were on the back here. I'm going to look and see if you guys have any questions while I do this. It definitely was not collected. It definitely was not collected in a red Solo cup. I saw somebody saying that. Hello, beautiful messy ball. So they knew how important this was. They knew this was an incredibly important piece of evidence and that it could hold a lot of clues that could break the case wide open. So, of course, they were going to treat this very delicately, and they were going to make sure, I hope, and I do believe from everything we've heard, that they were going to make sure that it was not contaminated, that nothing bad happened to this sheath. I mean, you have victims who appear to be stabbed, and then you walk upstairs and you see a knife sheath laying right next to one of them. I mean, it's practically a smoking gun, or could be. I mean, if there hadn't been any DNA on this knife sheath, I mean, no DNA, really hard to make a case. No DNA, no case. I mean, it would have taken much, much longer to develop a suspect. And I don't think you get an arrest without the DNA. I don't think you can connect it. I really don't. I really don't think that they could have done that. So there you have it. There's the sheath. So obviously they get the DNA hit. There's some other reports here I want to get to. There's also talk about the fingernail clippings and stuff. I kind of don't even want to show those. It's so kind of grody to the max. They've got the fingernail clippings of Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan that they took looking for DNA. We know that they found mixtures of DNA under all of their fingernails. There was unknown DNA from other people under Maddie's fingernails. I never thought that was some huge deal because she was out at a bar. Kaylee was out at a bar too. God only knows, who they were dealing with, or, you're out drinking, you're at a bar. I think that you can get DNA under your fingernails pretty easily from other people. Now, if there had been evidence, or if there had been signs that she fought, that she was able to fight, and that it looked like she had gotten a hold of somebody, yeah, then I'd be really interested in that. But as far as we know, it doesn't sound like Maddie at all had any type of evidence that she actually tried to fight back or got a hold of somebody with her fingernails. But I mean, you have to do all of that work anyway and swab underneath the nails. But yeah, the fingernail clippings, I'm just kind of like, I don't think we need to look at those. It's kind of icky. So, excuse me. Pardon me, guys. So here's a report about what they did with the knife sheath. They swabbed the front strap of the knife sheath, swabs of the edges on the handle portion, swab of the edges on the blade portion, swab of stains on the back of the knife sheath, reference blood card from Ethan, reference blood card from Xana, one from Maddie, one from Kaylee. They had oral swabs from, it looks like, a few people. And then they had DNA extracts from several items. And then they talk about the knife sheath and what they did. The DNA profile obtained from item 1.1, that's the knife sheath, was determined that the upper strap part was determined to be from an unknown male. Ethan Chapin, and then redacted, and blank are not the source of DNA on this item. This DNA profile was entered into CODIS to be routinely searched against the database. The case agency will be notified in the event of a profile match. Pardon me, guys. Oh, excuse me. The DNA profile obtained from item 1.4, that's the back of the sheath, indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which matches that obtained from the known reference sample of Kaylee Gonsalves. So there's a mixture on the back of the sheath. That back area here that they swabbed, there's a mixture, they said. Assuming a two-person mixture, the DNA profile is at least 757 septillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Kaylee Gonsalves and an unrelated randomly selected individual than if it resulted from two unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population. Oh my gosh, sorry guys, I don't know why I'm coughing so much. Maddie Mogen is a potential contributor to the minor component of this mixture. Assuming a two-person mixture, this DNA profile is at least 48.6 quintillion times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Maddie Mogen and an unrelated randomly selected individual than if it resulted from two unrelated individuals randomly selected from the general population. Ethan, Xana, and then it's redacted, are excluded as contributors to this DNA mixture. Then it talks about a partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.2. It indicates a mixture of DNA from 3 individuals, at least one of which is male. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 1.3 indicates a mixture of DNA from at least 2 individuals, at least one of which is male. Due to the low-level results and limited data, no comparisons can be made. So I find that interesting that they've got what appears to be other male DNA on here, but it's such a low level, they can't make a comparison. So I'm kind of like, was that Kohberger's, or was it just such a small quantity that they couldn't figure out what that was? I don't know. They consumed items 1.1 during and 1.4 during testing. However, DNA extracts remain of these items. So what do you guys think of that? Taya Toys says he knows how old I am. That's okay. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It sounds like there was a small amount of male DNA. They don't know who it belongs to. They couldn't do an analysis on it. But they say they have the unknown DNA, or the unknown male DNA, which we later found out was Bryan Kohberger's, from the female part of the snap of the knife sheath. So that to me sounds pretty, like that's the most compelling piece of DNA belonging to a male on the sheath. And those spots of DNA are so small from Kaylee and Maddie. I am really surprised by that. I was expecting it to be bigger, but they never gave a size when they talked about this in the court documents. They just said it was on there. I think just given what we heard about the crime scene, that's why we thought, oh, maybe this is going to be really, really, like this thing is going to have a lot of blood on it, but it really doesn't. I'm looking through your comments to see what you are saying. So we know what happened. Othram Labs stepped in to get the DNA to work on it when they did not get a hit back through CODIS, and they started working on it around Thanksgiving Day, and they were able to build a profile out, and they got the profile, they built it out, and they got it to Pennsylvania. That's what Kristen from Othram said at CrimeCon in her presentation. But they wanted it done faster. So the FBI came in and took it over. And we know what happened. They went into a bunch of databases that they weren't supposed to go into. Othram's not allowed to do that. So that's what they did. And then they came up with Bryan Kohberger. They gave Moscow police the name Bryan Kohberger. Hey, look at Bryan Kohberger, this guy, on December 19th. A lot of these pages are redacted for whatever reason. says gene mapper ID, and maybe this is just a bunch of DNA gobbledygook, a bunch of stuff that we wouldn't maybe understand anyway, or family information. So we probably don't really even need to look at it anyway. But a lot of these pages and these documents, this is a lot of what it shows. A lot of this stuff, I'm like, well, I'm not a big science person. I was never great at science. So it would have taken forever to get through this. One thing that it seemed like they were really interested in, just to show you, and I'm trying to get to it, but there's so many thousands, almost 2,300 pages on this, but I do have it pulled up. They were very interested in this Keystone light can. There was this Keystone light can at the house, and I felt like this Keystone light can got a lot of attention. Now, there were several cans, empty beer cans all over this house. They were on the steps of the house. They were, I think there were some on nightstands and other areas of the house, but this particular Keystone lights can got a lot of attention. And I don't know if they thought, oh, this belongs to a guy that could have been in the house, and this could have been, could contain the DNA of our perpetrator. But it seems like they really paid a lot of attention to this particular Keystone Light beer can. I'm scrolling to get to it in the documents right now. I'm going through it really quickly, so you don't have to sit here and watch me do that. But this is what the Keystone Light can looks like in one of the photographs. There are many, many, many photos of this Keystone Light can, which is kind of interesting to me that college kids drink Keystone Light. I always thought it was like Busch Light and stuff like that, but hey, to each his own. They had a number of different types of alcohol in that house, like White Claws, all types of stuff. But there was a lot that they looked at. They obviously looked at the fingernail clippings as well, but this Keystone Light can got a lot of attention, got a lot of play. Also, there were these water bottles that they were really, really interested in. I mean, they must have swabbed, I don't know how many water bottles. So look at all of these crushed water bottles. Mouth area of bottle and inside of lid swabbed. If this had gone to trial, do you know how long it would have taken to get through this DNA testing? A testimony? I mean, yeah, the sheath would have been the big piece of evidence, but I mean, they may have had to have gone through everything that they swabbed. Like, did you swab this? Did you do that? Did you do this? Did you do that? Whose DNA was on this? And, unknown this. Oh my gosh. This DNA person would have been on the stand. I don't know how much they could have pared it down, but this DNA analyst would have probably been on the stand for a couple of days, I'm assuming. I don't know. But the sheath, would have been the main player in all of this and would have been the big, big piece of evidence. So I'm still scrolling. But, obviously this did not get a lot of, this did not yield anything of any evidentiary value. The tapping noise, it might be me like scrolling with my mouse. Sorry about that, guys. It's me like on my laptop going like this with my mouse, and it's just it's me trying to get through all of this. But here, let me get you back to the December 5th photos of, obviously they went back to the drawing board with the sheath on December 5th. They decided, you know what, let's pull this thing out. Somebody must have requested additional testing. And they said, let's do this again. Let's look at the sheath again and let's swab it all over again. So maybe this is why it looks a little darker and worn, from the initial swabbing. So December 5th, after the 11/17, the November 17th swabbing, they go back and they swab it. And here's our old beat up ruler. And it looks kind of darker, and I think that's probably from the sterile water. And so they go back on December 5th, they pull it out, and they swab this area where the emblem is. And I'm kind of curious as to why they decided to do that. Maybe they thought the person was like, I don't know, did they think this person was a military person and they wanted to, like, maybe they touched or left some DNA on the eagle emblem and the the where it says K-bar. Maybe they felt like, oh, maybe they ran their fingers over it. Maybe they touched it. Maybe they did something. Maybe they're a military person and they were fascinated by this knife. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here. But obviously they felt like, you know what, we have to go back and swab this. We didn't do this portion. Maybe the cops, the detectives, whomever were like, hey, you didn't swab that one portion of it. We think maybe the person's fascinated by this knife or whatever. And so let's go back and pull that thing out and re-swab it. So they did. I don't think they got anything off of it. So they did that. And then here's this glove. On December 2nd, there's this black glove that they found at the house. It's a polar penguin black glove. And it apparently was not positive for blood on one area, but it was positive for blood, it looks like, in a couple of other areas. So I wonder if this is one of the famous gloves with the unknown male DNA. Remember, we heard about Ann Taylor talking about that. And maybe this is like, okay, we're going to test this and see if there's anything on this. Maybe they decide we got to test this and see, is there something of evidentiary value on here? Did our perpetrator possibly leave these gloves there? So there's different spots of blood on these gloves, or potential blood, and they swab them. And here's the palm side. I mean, I would love to know where this glove came from, because I'm pretty sure they found this outside of the house. Like, this is one of the items they found outside the house. And so they swab a couple of areas of this glove. And this is all the protocols that they followed for this. They've got a bunch of subjects' names here. They have a suspect. So look, they had a suspect that they were looking at on November 21st. Now, that person's name is redacted. It wasn't Bryan Kohberger. They had never heard of Bryan Kohberger before. But they had a suspect that they were looking at. I would love to know who that person is. They had somebody they were looking at. But then they had a bunch of subjects also. So this is very interesting. They talk about the latent prints that they took. And some testing they did on these latent prints, pardon me. And there, earlier in the documents, there was a bunch of what looked like it was probably fingerprint cards that were labeled, but without the prints showing. It just showed which fingerprints were taken and things of that nature. Item held in a clear zip-top bag, tissue type paper, and a black piece of construction type paper are present in the envelope. So these are the prints that were taken off of each victim at autopsy. So they were comparing prints from the victims to items of evidence. And then, of course, everything's redacted. So here's that window. Remember the window? You guys probably saw it with the fingerprint that they had processed. They were probably examining that. There was the back kitchen window that had what appeared to be a big palm print. And then lots of redaction. Lots of redaction. But here's the fingerprint cards, because they're not going to put somebody's fingerprints out there for the public to look at. But these are the fingerprint cards that they took from the victims. And then I guess the suspect that they had in November that they were looking at, and the subjects, the different subjects. And then we have palm prints from each victim. I'm scrolling, guys. 2,400 pages here. So they took fingerprints, palm prints, and footprints from each of the victims. They're talking about, now this is the notes taken, excuse me. It's like a field service report, it calls it, from some of the forensic scientists who processed the crime scene at 1122 King Road. And they took a variety of notes talking about the 6 bedrooms that they would have processed, a number of apparent blood stains on the sheet, on the bed, the south wall, the west wall, the 3rd floor bedroom. They used an imaging system to take photographs. So this is all, these are all the places that they photographed. And we've seen a lot of the photographs from ISP. ISP really processed the scene, not Moscow police. Moscow police took basically walk-through photos. ISP took really the real crime scene photos. I'm going to Google this really quickly. Orthotolidine. I wonder if that's the presumptive blood test, what they do for to see if something tests presumptively positive for blood. This is not helping me. Oh, it looks like it can be used for that, for blood testing. A presumptive test for blood. So that's what that test positive thing was on the sheath and then on the other items on the glove. So it's one of those, they can swab it and then see if it turns a certain color, and it'll be like a presumptive blood test, and then they can collect it instead of swabbing every little thing that they find in the house. If it's presumptively positive for blood, then they'll collect it as a sample instead of collecting everything they find in the house. So they did a lot of this. I mean, can you imagine this house, is a college house. It's like a petri dish. There's so much to go through in this house. 6 bedrooms in the house, 3 floors. It's a crime scene. And we've seen all the photographs that they've taken. They took so many photos. Dumpsters, let's see. I'm trying to zoom in on this, guys. Let's see. I'm having a hard time reading this. Dumpsters worked through something, house trash cans used through I like the writing in all caps, but I can't read this person's writing. Goodness me. So something about trash cans, presumptive blood tests, blah, blah, blah. They're talking about DNA swabs collected. This was on, let's see. These are briefing notes. 3D scans, second scene torn apart, transfer maybe due to detective. Tri-level, 2-bed, bath, each floor, blah, blah, blah. So this is where they're documenting and logging all of the photography that they conducted. This is the briefing. Talbot, it's an updated briefing. Dog, this is Murphy, was found on Kaylee's bed. So Murphy was found on Kaylee's bed. Sliding door gets left open for dog. Provided info on autopsy findings. This is on November 17th. One victim mentioned a flash of light, broken sense in the vacant room. Broke tape seal at sliding door at 9:15 to make entry. Numerous items and scene moved during detectives processing, documented and found upon our arrival. Scene photography, TM location condition. House faces north, 3 levels. Talks about the first, second, and third floor. Indoor staging area created on first floor at entry. Tools, supplies brought into that area. Designated trash at that location. Area not involved. No evidence in area. Somebody contacted Natasha Wheatley at Ada County regarding any footwear impressions from the scene. This is just like a log and notes of everything they did that day. Somebody, looks like one person was tasked with doing all the presumptive testing of stains. This KH did that. So, I mean, it looks like they were pretty thorough with what they did. And here we are back to the person that writes in all caps that I can't read. Second floor bathroom searched by WB and KH. Apparent transfer stains located on the floor from items removed from second floor west bedroom. Those stains were not tested. No other observations of note. 11:18 continued the notes. I mean, they were there for several days. I mean, it's a big place to process. Brief Sergeant Gilbertson as to findings inside the house, footwear, movement through the house, latents. Detective Talbot had been briefed at scene as to progress prior to his departure. All evidence turned over to Detective Talbot. Clear at 2300 Pacific Standard Time. Transfer digital images and delivered to Liz, somebody or another. Second floor bedroom blood stains. Talks about the circular stains ranging in size from 1 millimeter to 6 millimeter. So this documents all of the different blood stains that they found. We know that there were a lot of blood stains. So here's a document that appears to show the blood stains in one of the bedrooms. Second floor west bedroom. So that's Xana's bedroom. So this shows the stains in Xana's bedroom. So they did little diagrams. Second floor partial way of stairway, living room, hall, blood stains. Talks about what they found on the baseboard at regular stain on top edge of the baseboard. Third floor bedroom, blood stains. Circular stains. I'm assuming they would have had a blood pattern analysis person testify at trial. Maybe not. Maybe they weren't going to do that. Maybe they didn't feel like it was necessary. So it talks about the different blood stains here. I mean, obviously there were many blood stains in the third floor bedroom. So this documents the blood stains that they found in Kayleigh's bedroom, or I apologize, Maddie's bedroom. So here's another diagram. It's interesting. I mean, I guess that makes it easy using graph paper. It reminds me of high school, like math class in high school. But I guess that makes it pretty easy. But it marks all of these different blood stains that they found. Talks about the status of each window, locked or unlocked. It looks like a lot of them were unlocked. Here we have some more documentation. And these are all the presumptive chemical tests for blood. So there were a lot. So guys, I think I'm probably gonna wrap it up for now, but I've really enjoyed talking with you about this tonight. Maybe we can revisit another time, but a lot of these are just scene notes, documentation of what they did, the crime scene techs, the people who document the scene, the crime scene detectives, the investigators. This talks about searching the Uber car. It was a consent search. They did not have to get a search warrant. Let's see what else. More latent print investigation. Yeah, they did a lot with DNA, a lot with fingerprints. Here's more with the knife sheath. This is from looking at this again. More talking about what they did. This is with the glove and the knife sheath. Swabs from inside of glove. I'm looking to see what it says about the glove. Let's see what they called the glove. Okay, item 40 is the glove. They also talk about the blood stains on a handrail and the half wall. The handrail is the one, I think, where that was one of the unknown male DNA profiles. Item 40. Item 40 is the glove. Okay. The partial DNA profile obtained from item 40.1 was determined to be from an unknown male. Ethan Chapin and a bunch of other people whose names are redacted are not the source of the DNA profile. And then there's a partial DNA profile obtained from item 40.4, indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile. So I think we already know that. Due to insufficient quantity or degradation, only a partial DNA profile consisting of a single allele was obtained from item 29.1. Okay, the same unknown male D, from item 40.1 is a potential contributor to major DNA profile. Due to the low level results and limited data, no conclusions can be made regarding the minor contributor. So there's a partial DNA profile on the glove, mixture of DNA with a major profile, and then there's a minor profile with but there's not enough info on it. Interesting. I remember them talking about male D and male B in one of the hearings. So those are the unknown male DNA profiles from the handrail and then the glove. We never got the answer, though, as to why they didn't. Maybe it was just because they never submitted them into CODIS. Maybe they just didn't feel like it was necessary, or it wasn't. It probably wasn't probative, you know, when you have a knife sheath with somebody's DNA laying on a bed next to a homicide victim. Well, everybody, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me. I'm going to go through these 2,400 pages a little more and see if there's anything else that stands out. We will go through it a little bit more another time. I appreciate you joining me tonight. I appreciate the mods for being here. Melmac, Monty, Monana, and Webby. Thank you so much for being here. I forgot to shout them out earlier. Remember, if you would, please hit that thumbs up. Please subscribe as well. I'd love to have you as a subscriber. And Dolly Talk might be going to CrimeCon in Vegas. That's awesome, Dolly Talk. Maybe we could meet in person. I would love to meet you. I love meeting everybody at CrimeCon. It's so fun. Yes, Taya Toys. I hopefully insane in a good way. I don't know what that means. So you'll have to hit me up and DM me and tell me what you mean by that. But yeah, CrimeCon in Vegas should be really cool. But yeah, guys, I would love for you to hit that like button, subscribe. I'm going to go through the documents a little more and see what else I can find. But the big reveal, as we all know, is the sheath. So I'm going to go through it a little more. Just a tip from me, stay away from Keystone Light. And that's not a dig on Keystone Light. I just think, you know, drink some water instead. It's way healthier for you. I'm just not into drinking beer. So anyway, guys, thank you so much. Thanks to the mods. Thanks to you. And I have to go cook dinner now. So have a great night. I hope you're adjusting to the time change well. And don't forget to let me know where you've been watching from as well. See you later. Talk soon. Bye-bye.